Hi everybody, welcome to Live Blogger. I have combined all the videos in our custom Contact Us form series into the single long video so that it's easy for you to follow. Now in this video, we're basically going to create this contact form using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So here we can see if I click on this send button, we have this error which says all fields are necessary. And if I go ahead and add some details over here and if I click on send, we can see that please enter a valid email. So here we need to add a valid email, so I'll just type test@gmail.com and let's click on send. And now we can see we don't have any errors and the form is submitted. And this is also completely responsive, so if I decrease the width of this browser window, this is how it will look on a smaller screen. And in the end, I will also show you how to add this to your Blogger website, and the form submitted through this contact form will be sent to the email associated with the Blogger website. And I will also leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. Alright, so let's get started. Right here I have created this folder called Contact Us and I just opened it with VS Code. Now let's create the necessary file. So let's click on new file and let's create an HTML file. I'll just name it index.html. And let's create a CSS file. I'll just name it style.css. And let's start with the index.html file. Now in VS Code you can just press exclamation and press tab and you'll have this basic HTML5 code. And let's link our CSS file over here. So here I'll just type style.css in the href. Alright, now the first thing we will do is we'll create a container division and let's give it a class of contact container. And in this, the first thing we need to have is the heading. So let's create an h2 and let's tap get in touch. And then we need to have this subheading. So I'll just create a p tag and let's give it a class of subheading. And here I'll just copy this text from here and I'll just paste it over here. Right, now the next thing we need to have is this form. So in this form we need to have labels and input fields. So let's create a form element. So just tap form. And in this form the first thing we will do is we'll create this top section. So here we have the input fields for the name and email. Now we'll create a separate section for these two input fields because we want to have them displayed one below the other on smaller screens. So let's go ahead and create a division with the class of top section. Right now in this top section we need to have this label and this input field for the name. So for this I'll just create a container division and let's give it a class of group. And in this we need to have the input field and the label. So I'll just type input and we'll set the type to text, and we also need to have this label. So let's create a label over here. And for the label we need to have the ID inside the for attribute. So here let's create an ID and here let's type full name, and here in the for attribute let's type full name, and here let's type full name or your name. Right, now let's open this in our browser and let's see how it looks. So I have this extension called Live Server installed in VS Code. So once you have this installed, you can just right click over here in the HTML and click on open with Live Server. And now we can see that our design is displayed in the browser. Now if you go back to the original design, here we can see we also have this icon for this input field. So what I will do is I'll just add this input field inside a container division. So let's create a division with the class of input container. And in this we will have this input field. And here let's add the icon. So for that we will use heroicons.com. Right, here I'm in heroicons.com and let's search for user. And I'll just copy this SVG from here. Let's go back and let's paste it over here just before the input field. And now we can see we have the icon and the input field. Now let's go ahead and create the input field for the email. So here outside this division with the class of group, let's create another group. So let's type group, and in this we need to have the label first of all. So let's type label, and we will have an ID of email for this, and here let's type your email. And now even for the email input field we need to have this icon. So let's create a division with the class of input container. and in that we need to have the icon and the input field. So I'll just type input, and here for the ID I'll just type email, and here inside the input container let's add the icon. So let's go back to hero icons and let's search for email, and let's copy this icon from here, and I'll just paste it over here. Right now the next thing we need to do is we need to create this text area for the message, and let's go ahead and do this outside this top section. So here we have the top section, so let's go outside the top section, and here let's create a group, and in this we need to have the label, and here I'll just type message, and here I'll just type message. And now let's create a text area, and for the text area we don't need to have any icon, so I'll just create a text area over here, and here for the ID let's type message, and I'll just delete these columns and rows from here. And now the last thing we need to do is create this button. So for that let's create a division with the class of button container, and in this we need to have the button and the icon. So let's go back and let's create an input field, and for the type I'll just set it to submit, and for the value let's set it to send. And even for this button we need to have the icon, so let's go back and here let's search for the icon. So I'll just type send, and I'll just copy this SVG from here, and let's go back and let's paste it over here inside the button container. And with that we have completed writing the HTML of our design. So let's go back to our browser, and this is how it looks. Now let's go ahead and style this using CSS. So let's go to a style.css file, and first of all let's target the container division, which is this division with the class of contact container. So just tap contact container, and for this we will set a max width of 700 pixels, and we'll also bring it to the center of the screen. So I'll just tap margin 32 pixels top and bottom, and auto for left and right, and let's set the font family to Roboto, and let's set the color of all the text to 023047, and we'll also set a padding of 0.32 pixels for smaller screens. And this is how it looks right now. Now before styling anything else, let's go ahead and decrease the height of these icons so that we can see all the design clearly. So here I'll just tap contact container, and we have SVGs for the icon. So let's tap SVG, and let's set the height to 20 pixels. Right now let's style this heading. So here let's tap contact container, H2, and let's set the font size to 48 pixels, and let's set the margin to 0. And now let's style this subheading. So for the subheading we have this paragraph with a class of subheading. So I'll just type contact container subheading, and let's set the font size to 16 pixels, and let's set a margin top of 8 pixels. And if we decrease the width of the browser window, here we can see that the line height is too less. So here let's type line height, and let's set it to 1.8, and I think that looks alright. Now let's go ahead and create this underline that we have over here. So for that let's create an after element. So here I'll just type contact container subheading : after, and we need to position this after element relative to the subheading. So here let's tap position relative, and here let's tap content, and if we just type, let's say 1 2 3, then here we can see after the subheading we have 1 2 3 displayed. Now we don't want to display anything, we just want to display a line. So here I'll just set the position to absolute, and let's set the height of the element to 1 pixel, and let's set the width to 50 pixels, and let's set the background color to 0096C7. And now we can see we have this line, and we need to bring it to the bottom. So for that let's go ahead and set the left position to 0, and the bottom position to negative 12 pixels. And now we can see that the underline is in the correct place. Right now let's style this form element. So here we can see we have this form tag. So here let's tap contact container form, and let's set the display to flex, and let's set the flex direction to column, and let's add a gap of 8 pixels. Right now let's style these input fields. So let's type contact container form input, and let's set the width to 100%, and let's set the padding to 10 pixels top and bottom and 16 pixels left and right. Now I think the width of these input fields is more than expected. So if I just go over here to the container, and if I just add a background color, here we can see that the width is a lot more. So for that we have to add a line of code in the CSS. Here we need to type contact container and also all the elements inside contact container. So contact container asterisk, and here we need to type box sizing, border box, and now we can see we have the correct width. So let's remove this background color, and let's continue styling this input field. Let's go ahead and set the font size, and let's set the font size to 16 pixels, and let's also remove the border. So I'll just type border 0, and let's add some border radius. So I'll just type border radius, and let's set it to 4 pixels, and we'll also add a box shadow. So just type box shadow, and let's set the values to 0, 5 pixels, 15 pixels, 0, RGBA, 0, 0, 0 and 0.15, and this is how it looks. Now we also need to add the same styling to this text area, so let's add that over here as well. So just tap contact container form text area. Now here for the text area we need to change the font. So here I'll just type font family, and let's set it to Roboto. Now when we hover over this, we have this outline. We need to change the color of this outline. So here let's tap contact container form input colon focus, and contact container form text area colon focus, and let's set the outline to 1 pixel solid, and let's set the color to 0096C7, and now we can see we have the correct outline. Now let's increase the height of this text area a little bit. So here let's tap contact container form text area, and let's set the height to, let's try 200 pixels. I think we can decrease it. Let's try 140 pixels, and I think that looks alright. Now the next thing we need to do is we need to place this icon inside this input field. So for that let's go ahead and set the position of the container division of the input field, which is input container, to relative, and then we can set the position of the SVG to absolute. So here let's type contact container input container, and let's set the position to relative. And now for the SVG, which we have selected over here, so for the SVG let's tap position absolute, and let's set the top position to 50%, and now it starts from the 50% mark. So we need to type transform translate y minus 50%, and now it is exactly in the center. And from the left let's add a position of 8 pixels, and now the icons are positioned correctly. Now we need to bring the text to the right a little bit. So for that let's add some padding left. So here for the input let's tap padding left, and let's set the value to 36 pixels, and I think that looks alright. Now here for the text area we don't need to have any padding on the left because we don't have any icon. So here for the text area let's type padding left, and we'll set the default padding left, which was 16 pixels. So let's type padding left of 16 pixels, and that looks alright. Now here we can see that for the button we have the icon over here on the left side. So we need to bring this icon inside this button. So let's go back, and here for the input container we have this position of relative. So we will do the same for the button container, because for the button we have this division with the class of button container. So here let's type comma contact container button container, and now we can see that the icon is inside the button. Now let's go ahead and style the button. So for the button, let's type contact container button container, and let's set the width of the button to 160 pixels. Let's set the margin top to 8 pixels. Now for the button we need to have this icon on the right side. So here we can see that the icon is on the right side. So let's type contact container button container SVG, and let's type left, and we will unset the left value, and we'll set the right value to 8 pixels. Now let's go ahead and change the actual button. So for the button we have this input with a type of submit. So here let's type contact container input with a type of submit, and for the button let's set a background color, and let's set it to 023047, and let's set the color of the text to white, and even for the SVG let's set the color to white, and let's set the text align to the left. So here let's type text align left, and we need to set the cursor to pointer. So let's tap cursor pointer, and now we can see when we hover over this we have this pointer. And let's also add a hover effect. So here for the button container let's tap contact container button container colon hover, and let's set the transform scale to 1.03, and we will have a smooth animation. So let's tap transition, and let's set it to all 300 milliseconds ease, and here we can see we have this hover effect. Right now the next thing we need to do is we need to set these two input fields one next to the other on larger screens. So for that we have this division with the class of top section. So let's target that. Here let's tap contact container top section, and let's set the display to flex, and we will have a gap of 16 pixels between the elements. Now we can see that these elements are not taking up the full width. So for that we have to target these individual divisions. So here we can see inside the top section we have groups. So let's target the group. So here I'll just tap contact container group, and we need to set the flex to 1, and now we can see they take up the full space. Now let's also add some gap between the label and the input field. So I'll just make this also a display of flex, and let's set the gap of 8 pixels, and we also need to set the flex direction to column. So let's tap flex direction column, and now we can see it looks alright. Now let's add some margin bottom to this top section, so that we have some gap between the message and these two sections. So here for the top section let's tap margin bottom, and let's set it to 12 pixels. Now we need to have some gap between this subheading and this form. So let's target the form, and here's the form. Let's add a margin top, and let's set the margin top to 32 pixels, and I think that looks alright. Right now let's go ahead and write the CSS for smaller screens. So I'll just decrease the width of the browser window, and when we are on a smaller screen we need to display all these input fields one below the other. So here for the top section we had set a display of flex. Now we need to set the flex direction to column for smaller screens. So here I'll just add a media query. So I'll just tap at media max width of 600 pixels, and here let's tap contact container top section, and let's set the flex direction to column. And that's basically it with the smartphone version. So with that we have completed designing this contact form using HTML and CSS. So let me just give you a demo. So first of all, if I click on this send button without entering any of these details, then we will have this error message which says all fields are necessary. And then if I click on any of these input fields, the error message goes away. And if I add some text inside these two input fields, and if I click on send button, we still have this message. And let's add some details over here. So I will just type john@gmail.com, and let's type testing, and let's click on send. And now we can see that we don't have any error message, and the form was submitted. Now we have one more validation for the email. So if I just type john@gmail, and if I just type testing over here, and if I click on send, we can see that it says please enter a valid email address. So if I just type .com, and now if I click on send, we don't have the error message. So this is what we're going to add in this video. Let's get started. Right here I'm in my source code, and let's go ahead and create a JavaScript file for this. So let's click on new file, and let's create a file called main.js. And now let's go ahead and create a division for the error message. So let's scroll down in the HTML, and here after this division, which is the button container, let's go ahead and create a division called error message. And here let's type error message. And now if we save this, here we can see that it says error message. Now let's go ahead and add some basic styling to this. So let's go to style.css file, and here let's type contact container error message, and let's set the color of the text to red, and let's set a margin top, and let's set the margin top to 8 pixels, and this is how it looks. Alright, now let's start writing the JavaScript for this. Now the first thing we need to do is we need to reference all the elements that we need from the HTML into our JavaScript code. So we need to reference the full name input field, which is this one right here, which has an ID of full name. And then we need to reference the input field for the email, which has an ID of email. And then we need to reference the text area, which has an ID of message. And then we also need to reference this button. So we'll simply reference this btn container. And then we also need to reference this error message division. And I'll just remove this error message from here. And now let's go ahead and go to our main.js file. And let's reference all those elements. So let's type const name field equals document.querySelector. And let's type contact container. And we have an ID of full name. And then let's type const email field equals document.querySelector contact container, and we had an ID of email. And then we have the message, so let's type const message field equals document.querySelector contact container, and we had an ID of message, so let's type hash message. And then we need to reference the send button, so let's type const send btn equals document.querySelector, and let's type contact container. And here we can see we have this division with the class of btn container. So let's type btn container. Now let's go back to our design, and we have a problem with this button. Here when we hover over this icon, we don't have the cursor set to pointer. And when you hover over any other part of the button, we have the cursor set to pointer. So we will fix that. And if I click on any other place, the page refreshes. But if I click on this icon, it doesn't happen. So let's go back and let's go to the CSS and let's just fix that. Here for the SVG of the button container, let's type pointer events and let's set it to none. Now let's go back, and now we can see that we have the cursor set to pointer even for the icon. So everything is working alright. Now let's go back and let's write the code for the validation. So we will go ahead and add an event listener to this send button. So let's type send btn.add event listener, and we will listen for the click event. And let's create an arrow function over here. Now let's add an if condition and let's check whether even one of these input fields is empty. So we can just type name field dot value equals empty, or email field dot value equals empty, or message field dot value equals empty. And if this is true, then we need to write some code. So the first thing we will do is we will prevent the default behavior of the form. So by default, when we click on this send button, the page reloads. So we need to prevent that. So for that we need to use an argument that we get from here. So I'll just call it e. You can name this anything you want. And let's type e dot prevent default. So this will prevent the default behavior of the send button. And now let's go ahead and add the text to the error message. So here for the error message we have this division with the class of error message. So I'll just reference that over here. So just type const error message equals document.querySelector contact container error message, and let's go ahead and type error message dot text content equals, and let's type all fields are necessary, and let's add an else over here, and let's type error message dot text content equals blank. Right, now let's go back to our HTML file and let's link our JavaScript file over here. So here just before the body ends, let's type script :src, press tab, and here let's type main.js. And let's go back to our design and let's see whether it works. So let's click on the send button, and now we can see it says all fields are necessary. And if we leave even one of these fields blank, we will have this message. But we have some problems with this. If we add some space over here and if I click on send, we can see that we don't have the error message. So here if we just add some space for all of these input fields and if I click on send, we will not have the error message. So let's fix that. Let's go back and here let's type name field dot value dot trim. So this will trim all the extra spaces, and let's add that to the email field and also the message field. So let's type value dot trim. And now let's go back and if I just add some spaces over here and if I click on send, we can see that it says all fields are necessary. And now if we add some text over here for each of these input fields and if I click on send, we don't have the error message. Now let's write the code for checking the email, and for that we will use regular expression. So I'll just simply copy and paste a simple regular expression for the email. So I'll just create a constant called email regex, and you can just Google for email regular expression and you'll find this code. Alright, so here I have copied this regular expression, and what we are basically doing over here is that we are checking whether we have at least one character before the @ symbol, and then we need to have some character, and then we need to have a dot, and then we need to have at least one character. So this is basically a simple format of an email. So this is what this regular expression does. Now let's go ahead and check whether this email field matches with this regular expression. So let's go ahead and add an else if over here. So I'll just type else if, and here let's add the condition. So here let's type email regex dot test, and in parentheses you have to type email field dot value. So this will check whether the email field value matches with this regular expression, and we have to check whether this is not true. So let's add an exclamation over here, and here also let's type e.prevent default and error message dot text content equals please enter a valid email. Right, now let's go ahead and check whether this works. So let's go back to our design and let's add some text over here, and let's click on send, and now we can see it says please enter a valid email, and if you don't have one of these values then it says all fields are necessary. Now let's go ahead and enter a valid email. So let's type test@gmail.com and let's click on send, and now we can see we don't have any errors, so everything is working alright. Now the last thing we need to do is when we have this error message and when we click on any of these fields, the error message should disappear. So here we can see in the original design, if I click on the send message, we have this error, and if I click on any of these input fields, the error message goes away. So let's go ahead and add that functionality. Here let's type name field dot add event listener, and we will listen for an event called focus, and this will be fired when we click on these input fields, and when these input fields are in focus, the event will be fired. So let's create an arrow function over here, and here we simply need to set the error message to blank. So I'll just copy this and paste it down here, and I'll just copy this whole code from here and paste it 2 more times for the email and the message. So here let's type email field, and here let's type message field, and now let's go back and let's click on this send button, and we have this error message, and if I click on any of these input fields, the error message goes away. So everything is working alright. Let's check it once more, and let's add a message, and let's click on send, and we don't have any problems. Alright, so that's basically how you can add input field validation to this contact form using JavaScript. Here I'm in my Blogger dashboard, and let's go ahead and create a new page for contact us. So let's go to pages, and let's click on new page, and I'll just name it contact us. And the first thing you need to do is you need to change this to the HTML view. So by default it will be in the compose view. Click on this button and click on HTML view. Now here you can add the HTML, CSS and JavaScript. So first of all, let's add the CSS. So let's create a style tag over here, and I'll just close it over here, and let's go to our source code, and I will leave the link of the source code in the description of this video. So let's go to the style.css file, and let's copy all this CSS from here, and let's paste it over here inside this style tag. Now let's paste the HTML. So let's go outside this style tag, and let's go back to our source code, and let's go to the HTML file, and let's go ahead and copy this division from here. So this division with the class of contact container. So let's copy all of this from here, and let's paste it over here. And now the last thing we need to do is add the JavaScript. So let's create a script tag over here, and in this script tag we will add the JavaScript. So let's go to our main.js file, and I'll just copy all of this JavaScript from here, and let's paste it over here inside the script tag. Right now if we click on publish and confirm, here we can see our page has been created. So let's click on view, and here we can see our contact form is being displayed, and if I decrease the width of the browser window, we can see that it is completely responsive. Now we have some problems in the styling. We don't have the correct margin for this heading. So here we can see we have a lot of margin. So let's go ahead and add the margin. Let's right click over here and go to inspect, and this is the H2. Let's go ahead and add some margin bottom. I think 24 pixels looks alright. So let's add a margin bottom of 24 pixels to the contact container H2. So let's go inside this page, and let's go to the H2, and here let's type margin bottom 24 pixels, and let's update it. Let's go back to our page, and let's refresh this page, and now we can see it looks alright. Let's click on this send button, and we have the error displayed. And if I add some text, now we have the error displayed for the email, and if I add the correct email, and if I click on send, we can see that the page is reloaded. Right now this is just a simple form, and we don't have any functionality. Now to add the functionality, we're going to use the contact form widget that comes by default with Blogger. Before that, let's go ahead and make some changes to this page. Let's go ahead and hide this title, and we'll also remove these comments, and we'll also remove this popular post widget from here. First of all, let's remove this comment. So let's go back to the page, and here in the options you can just select do not allow hide existing. So this is for the comments. Let's click on update. Let's go back to our page, and let's refresh this page. And now we can see that the comment option is not being displayed. Right now, let's right click over here in the title and let's go to inspect. And here we can see we have this S3 with a class of post title. So let's select that over here inside our page. So in this CSS, I just add a selector. Let's type post title. And let's see what else we need to hide. The next thing we need to hide is this share button right here. So let's right click over here and go to inspect. And let's see what is the selector for this share button. So if you scroll up here, we can see we have this division with the class of post share buttons. So let's copy this class from here. And let's paste it over here. And we need to add a dot over here. And let's see what else we need to hide. Let's scroll down and here we can see we have this line. Let's see what is that. Let's go to inspect. And here we have this section with a class of comments. So this line is basically for the comments section. So let's hide that as well. Here I'll just type dot comments. And let's go back and the next thing we need to hide is this popular posts widget. So let's right click over here and go to inspect. And here we can see we have this widget with an ID of popular posts 1. So let's copy this ID from here and let's go back, and since it is an ID we need to type hash popular posts 1. And now let's go ahead and type display of none, and let's click on update. Right now let's go back to our page and let's refresh this page. And now we can see we don't have the title and we also don't have the share button. And if you scroll down, we don't have the popular post widget. So everything is looking alright. Now let's go ahead and add the functionality of this contact form. So for that, let's go back to our Blogger dashboard. And let's go over here to layout. And here we need to click on add a gadget. And we need to search for contact form. So if you scroll down here, we can see we have the contact form. So let's click on that. And here we have the configuration page. Let's click on show the widget and let's click on save. Now this widget is added to the sidebar. So now if we save this and if you go back to our website and if I refresh this page, let's go to the home page. And here we can see we have this hamburger icon, and if I click on that, we have the sidebar, and in the sidebar we have this contact form. So this is a contact form that works. So if I just add some text over here, so I'll just type John and john@gmail.com. Let's click on testing and let's click on send. And here we can see it says your message has been sent. So this contact form works because it is inbuilt in a Blogger website. So now what we need to do is we need to copy this contact form from here and we need to integrate it with the custom contact form that we created. So let's right click over here and let's go to inspect. And here we can see that we have this widget, and in that we can see we have this division with the class of contact form widget. Let's open that, and in that we have this form. So we need to copy this form. So I'll just right click over here and let's click on edit as HTML. And now we can go ahead and copy this HTML from here. So let's press Command A or Control A and let's copy it from here. And let's go back to our pages and let's go to contact us. And here we will add the contact form of the Blogger website. So here just before the JavaScript, I'll just paste the contact form. And now if we update this and let's go back to this contact us page. And now if you scroll down here, we can see we have the contact form of Blogger. And let's see whether it works. So let's click on send and we can see that it has this error message. So this contact form is working. Now what we need to do is we need to copy these input fields from here and we need to add them to these input fields. So let's go back to the page. So here we have the page and let's scroll down. And here this is our contact form that we designed, and in that we have this form, and in the form we have this top section, and in that we have group. In the group we have the label, and then we have this input container division. In that we have this icon, and after that we have this input field. Now instead of this input field, we need to add the input field of the blogger widget. So let's scroll down, and let's take a look at the input field. So this is the input field that comes by default with Blogger. So I'll just copy this one from here. This is for the name. So let's copy this, and let's paste it over here for the name. And I think we can delete this class. Now let's go ahead and copy the input field for the email. So let's scroll down, and this is the input field for the email. So let's copy this, and let's scroll up, and let's cut this from here, and let's add the input field of the blogger widget, and we can simply delete this class. And then lastly we have this text area. So let's scroll down, and here for the email message we have this text area. So I'll just copy this, and let's scroll up, and let's paste it over here for this text area. And let's go ahead and delete this calls and also rows from here. And I think we can also delete this class. I think this was for the styling. Right now let's go ahead and add the button. So here we can see inside the button container division we have this icon, and then we have this input field with the type of submit. So let's scroll down, and here we have the contact form submit button, and let's copy this, and let's paste it over here. And here I'll just delete this class, and then we have this ID, the type is set to button, and the value is set to send. And then we have the error message of the Blogger website. So here we can see we have this div, and in that we have the contact form error message and the contact form success message. So let's copy this, and let's paste it over here. Now since we have this error message of our own, I think we can simply delete this error message from here. I'll just keep the success message, and let's go ahead and delete these styles that we have by default. Right now let's go ahead and update this, and let's go back to our page, and let's refresh this page. And here we can see in the styling we have this problem for the button. So let's go back to our source code, and let's go to the HTML file, and here we can see for the button we have this type of submit. And if I go to the style.css file, and here we can see that we are adding these styles to the input of the type of submit. But if you go to the Blogger website, and if I take a look at the button, here we can see that the button is a type of button. So let's scroll up, and let's go to the CSS, and here instead of submit let's type button, and let's click on update. And now let's go back to our page, and let's refresh this page. And now we can see we have the correct styling for the button. Now let's go ahead and delete this contact form. So let's go back to the page, and let's scroll down, and I'll just delete this contact form. And let's also hide the contact form that we have in the sidebar. So let's go back to our website, and let's go to the home page, and let's click on this icon, and here we have the contact form. I'll just right click over here and go to inspect, and here we can see we have this sidebar top section, and then we have this container division sidebar top wrapper. So this is the contact form, and after that we have the other sections. So let's hide this sidebar top wrapper. So I'll just copy this class from here, and let's go back to our theme, and let's click on this arrow, and let's click on edit HTML, and let's go to the CSS, and here in the end of the CSS I'll just copy the selector and let's just set the display to none, and I'll just save it. And let's go back to our website and let's refresh this page. And now let's open the sidebar, and now we can see that the contact form is not being displayed. So let's go back to the contact form page. So let's go to pages and let's click on view. Now you can add the link of your contact form page to the home page so that users can easily navigate to this page. Alright, now let's see whether everything works alright. So let's click on send, and we have some problems in the code. So let's right click over here and go to inspect, and let's see whether we have any errors. So if you go to console, here we can see we have 2 errors, and if I click on this, we can see that name field has this error. So cannot read properties of null. So name field is not being read correctly. So let's go back to contact us, and let's scroll down, and here in the JavaScript, this is where we are referencing name field, and here we are adding this ID of full name. But if you scroll up, here we have changed the input fields. So let's add the ID of the updated input field. So right now the ID of the name is this ID right here. So let's copy this ID, and let's scroll down and let's paste it over here for the name. And then for the email, we have a different ID. So let's copy the ID for the email, and I'll just paste it over here. And then we have the ID for the message, which is this one right here. So let's copy this, and let's paste it over here. And I think that's it. So let's click on update, and let's go back to our page, and let's refresh this. Now let's click on send, and here we can see we have this error message, and here we have the error message for the valid email. So let's type test@gmail.com, and let's click on send. And now we can see it says sending, and the message has been sent. Now if you open the email account associated with this Blogger website, then you will find the email with the details of this form. Alright, so with that we have completed adding this custom contact us form to your Blogger website using HTML, CSS and JavaScript. And we have used the default contact form widget from Blogger for the functionality. Alright, so that's basically it for this video. If you have any doubts, you can ask in the comments below. And if you like this video, please click on the like button and subscribe to this channel to get the latest video updates. Thanks a lot for watching. Have a nice day.